Hello, and thank you for engaging with this virtual training from the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty. Today, we will be covering the third component of the Affirming Racial Equity tool, which is Prejudice Elimination. It is important to understand that within the larger framework of racial equity within Jefferson County Public Schools, the Affirming Racial Equity, or A.R.E tool, is one of the central resources available to JCPS employees seeking to ensure our schools are actively pursuing racially equitable education for all students. If you have already explored the A.R.E tool and the A.R.E tool guidebook, you will already be aware of the extensive utility of this tool. The A.R.E tool can be leveraged by all school faculty to enhance outcomes for Black and Brown students. It is important to note here that regular utilization of the A.R.E tool, especially in PLCs, supports the JCPS racial equity policy and the future vision for curriculum, instruction, assessment, and pedagogy. Although the JCPS racial equity policy outlines many expectations for the central office and larger district, several expectations are most readily influenced by classroom educators. In regards to diversity in curriculum, instruction, and assessment, there are specific expectations all schools, school leaders, and classroom educators, regardless of content or grade level, are expected to pursue. In the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty, we strive to ensure that the mission and vision of the district lives in all areas because we believe that in JCPS, racial equity is everyone's concern and should be a commitment made by all. While all components of the A.R.E tool address the JCPS racial equity pillar, the other two pillars of JCPS are further supported by one half each of the A.R.E tool. Moreover, the A.R.E tool aligns with the ongoing work addressed throughout the JCPS 6 systems. These connections are not exhaustive, but are featured here to showcase the interconnectedness of the work being done within the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty. As previously mentioned, this virtual training is focused on the third component of the A.R.E tool, Prejudice Elimination. If you are still building fluency around the A.R.E tool, this is a timely space to pause and reflect, preferably with your PLC, on the various lesson descriptors listed here. What is prejudice elimination? It challenges teachers to use curriculum to help students cultivate a deeper level of understanding of each other. It challenges teachers to be aware of content that may be considered inflammatory. And so it's important to note here that information that may be inflammatory may not be inflammatory to us, but it may be inflammatory to our students. So please keep the student perspective in mind. It challenges teachers to be aware of controversial, demeaning, offensive, or emotionally charged content or statements for minoritized groups. It challenges teachers to amplify the voices of the oppressed through curriculum. And it is important to note here, we have to name and claim who the oppressed are. And then finally, it challenges teachers to model valuing difference. How can we expect our students to appreciate those different experiences and backgrounds of others if we are not also modeling that behavior? What does prejudice elimination look like? Teachers are aware and model cultural humility by reflecting on how their personal bias can affect the learning environment. Teachers are aware and model cultural humility through the understanding that we will never know all there is to know about our students' backgrounds and cultures. It's teachers holding their colleagues accountable for their personal biases. And it's being very selective about the content we choose to put in front of our students that may not be affirming and could cause further trauma. What are the do's and don'ts of prejudice elimination? Do hold your colleagues accountable for their words and actions. Do teach students to be proud, value their culture, and help children better understand themselves and their classmates through classroom instruction. Do teach students to be critical thinkers by helping them understand what stereotypes are and how to recognize and criticize them. Do not begin without exploring your own biases and racial identity. Do not imply that one group of people are better than another group of people. Do not only show student examples of people who look like them in uninspiring, one-dimensional ways. Do not forget to analyze data by race to address deficits. Questions for PLCs to consider. How can the knowledge we have attained via data and the lived experiences and racial identities of our students inform our understandings of students' needs? How will the instruction provided to students permit them to be actively anti-racist and break down systems of inequity? How will we ensure that we are providing both equitable intervention and enrichment for all students? How specifically does this component of the R tool, Prejudice Elimination, support the work of your content area? Thank you for engaging in today's training. As you progress through the steps of the PLC framework, additional trainings for each component can be found within the R tool. You are encouraged to return to them as you need to ensure professional growth and racially equitable education for all students.